right, ladies and gentlemen. So, real quick, this from the Sixers side, this was exactly how I anticipated they would play the entire series. Basically, you're kind of running pick and rolls with James Harden and Joel Embiid. I didn't think James Harden was going to show up too much this series. I thought it really kind of relied on Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and I thought Tobias would have a good series, but I didn't know if Tyrese was going to be ready for the opportunity. I'm still kind of hesitant on that boat. Obviously, he had game one, and that was unbelievable. But, I really look at tonight, and I'm like, we knew Joel was going to go off. Joel drops 33 and 13. We knew Tyrese would get some bags. We knew James Harden would get some bags. We knew Tobias Harris was going to get some bags. And really, from that point, if you're thinking there's only 4 guys on the Sixers that you really have to worry about, you're thinking like, all right, Toronto stands pretty good. And I will admit, one thing I didn't really anticipate was a bad series from a cat named Fred VanVleet or a cat named Pascal Siakam. Now, game 1, Siakam had a good game. Last game, Freddie had, a couple good quarters. For the most part, I'm not trying to dilly-dally here. They're playing like shit. I mean, it's kind of that simple to me. Fred VanVleet, Siakam, you're the best players on your roster. You need to have more than 12. You need to have more than 12 apiece in a critical game 3. And I'm not trying to go at them because if there's anybody on the planet right now who is like pissed off with their performance, it's going to be Pascal Siakam. It's going to be Fred VanVleet. Now, obviously, Freddie's kind of nursing a knee. I don't really want to blame injuries. Siakam's been getting the Tobias Harris treatment. The tough part with Pascal to me is that he has been getting locked up by Tobias Harris. And even the shots that are like pretty good looks, they're not great looks. They're not looks he's gotten particularly in the second half of the season. And, they're relatively aggressive. I would like to see the aggressiveness stay for 4 quarters, but for the most part, man, both of them this whole series, it hasn't been working. Hasn't been working. But I'm not trying to put a damper on the Raptors season because you're not supposed to be here, man. You're not supposed to be here. And that's something we talked about, especially after game 1, after game 2. Like, if you're blaming, or if not blame, I shouldn't say blaming, that's kind of shitty. If you're getting pissed off that your team isn't doing well because of an injury to a rookie basketball player, I get it's not your stereotypical rookie. It's Scotty Barnes. Like, I understand that, but still, it's a rookie. You can't blame a rookie for being down 3-0. Toronto hasn't played great. It's the harsh reality of the series. Toronto hasn't played great, man. The good news is they're way ahead of schedule. You just had the 4th pick in the draft last season. You had a horrible year, statistically, analytically, top and bottom. You played in a different country. You played in Tampa Bay. No one was expecting you to be in the playoffs. No one was expecting you to be the 5th seed in the playoffs. And it's unideal the way the first 3 games have gone. That's just the pure reality of it. You got to accept it. But the future's still looking immensely bright in Toronto. It's looking awesome. Scotty Barnes, honestly, I would go as far to say with or without Scotty Barnes, like even if, let's say even Toronto drafted Jalen Suggs, it's not like they have a bad future. You didn't hit a home run like you did with Scotty Barnes, who you actually have, but you still have a good future. You still have a bright future. That whole Toronto-Tampa Bay Raptor thing was a whole anomaly. But man, James Harden, their second best player, guy who repeatedly doesn't show up in the playoffs, gets fouled out in the 4th quarter, and you go to halftime. You go to overtime, and you're not able to win the game with the opposing team missing a superstar, and you finish that game with 101 points. You're not winning. It really boils down to that simple. The only players who did good tonight, to me, I shouldn't say only. Gary Trent had a phenomenal game. He had a phenomenal flu game. You could tell he played 45 minutes. He had 24 points. You could tell Gary Trent Jr. still isn't 100%. Like, you can just tell. The man was almost very similar to Joel, where his face, his head will either be down or he just looks like complete shit. That's how he looked the whole game. Even if he's draining an important 3, there was a possession where he saved a ball from going out of bounds, made a defensive stop, threw the ball. Ball comes back to him and he drains a 3, and he's not even hyped. Now, I know Gary Trent isn't the most outgoing guy. I know he's relatively reserved, but still, like, he just had a huge play. He looked like he was about to throw up. So you know Gary's still going through something. And OG's to me has been it actually isn't even close. It's close because Scotty Barnes got injured so early in game one. But OG's been the best player of the series for the Raptors. And I have no disrespect to OG because I never want the Raptors to get rid of him. I think he's a huge piece to their future. He's so young. He can play both offensive and defense. But if he's your best player unanimously, there's no question asked. He's your best player through 3 games. You're probably not in a position to win the basketball series, right? So that it's food for thought. 26 points, 8 of 18, 4 of 9. If he had a little bit of help, which he's had in a couple of games, but there's been other issues, it's been unideal. This was the most complete game, and Toronto had the lead all the way until overtime, or maybe in the last couple of minutes of the fourth quarter. You had the lead for 3 quarters fully. There's no excuses, man. There really just are no excuses, and that's what's tough about this. So there's no excuses, but then you can play devil's advocate. You can be like, all right, well, the Raptors weren't supposed to be here. That's true, but you just lost 3 games that it's not like they were impossible to win. So it's just tough. It's tough, and I know I'm not the only one. I know Raptors fans right now are not feeling great. But the last guy who played really solidly tonight was Precious Achiuwa. And so it's a good sign. It's a good sign. You had Gary Trent, you had OG, and you had Precious Achiuwa. So arguably, you had the 3 most X-Factor type of players in the series had a good game tonight. And they've been having good series, except Gary Trent. OG, Precious have had very impressive first 3 games. So I don't think it's over for Toronto. I don't know if a team's ever, I was getting a lot of comments in my live stream that no team has ever came back 3-0 in a playoff series. I don't know if that's true. Just kind of assuming it is true. If there's going to be a team that pulls that off, it's going to be this Raptors team against that Sixers team. That's the way it works. It might not make sense to a lot of people, but that's the way it's going to work. I mean, James Harden, Joel Embiid, Toronto Raptors, we know the history that they have. There's going to be a team to come back 3-0. It's going to be Toronto. At this point, you go game at a time. You know, you really go game at a time. As I mentioned early on, I've seen the Raptors go for 3 straight. I've seen them go for 4 straight. I've seen them go for 5 straight, 6 straight, 7 straight, the whole shebang. This has been a roller coaster of a season. But once Toronto flips that switch, it will start to make more sense. As crazy as it seems, this was getting on the right track. This is probably the worst time in the season, obviously, to lose 3 straight basketball games. But at the same time, you can use it to your advantage. All right. Toronto didn't really have too much issues with James Harden in Philadelphia this season in the 2 games that they played. They won both of them. You've lost 3 straight. If this was the regular season and Toronto won 4 straight, it wouldn't be that crazy. But now that we're in the playoffs, teams are going a little bit harder, that whole thing. It is a little bit more crazy. But I really don't think Toronto's out of this series. Obviously, the Raptors aren't winning in 6. My initial prediction was Raptors in 6. And obviously, you're playing at a disadvantage. You know, if we're being realistic here, the chances Toronto win this series are probably like 5 to 10. You're going to need some luck. And you're going to need to go game to game. And you're going to need Scotty Barnes. That's really it, man. It was a tough game because you limited Tyrese Maxey, you limited Tobias Harris, you limited James Harden, and then Embiid just started making Wardell Curry shots, and it was like, you know, what are we really watching here? Like, what's going on? He did it twice. And so it's bad luck, especially considering the last time Philly and Toronto met in Toronto, it was in the playoffs, it was, you know, completely different story. It's not fun, man. It's not fun, but you got to think bigger picture. You know, if you're getting too down with this loss, you got to think bigger picture. Even if Toronto, keep in mind they most likely won't come back. There's still a chance. Records were meant to be broken, but you know, most likely they won't win the series, and you'll go back next season without a first-round pick to add injury to insult. But you'll make the moves in free agency. You don't really need draft picks at this point. You hit a home run with Scotty Barnes, and you hit a mini RBI double to win the baseball game with Delano Banton, along with Precious Achiuwa. Like, they're fine with age. So it's definitely not over for Toronto or anything like that. And I don't think any Raptors fans are even thinking that silly. So that's it for today, man. Drop some comments down below on Game 3 or the series in general. And it was tough, but just happened. Still kind of got to process it. Time to watch the Bulls. Let's try and hit 100 likes, and I'll see you guys later.